Hello, my name's Edith Bowman. Welcome to this discussion on the brand new 6-part series for BBC One, The Tourist. A phenomenal series. I've only seen the first episode and I am gripped. And now The Tourist had a special preview at the BFI recently, and in a moment you're going to be able to see the whole discussion with creatives and cast. But first up, now unfortunately Jamie Dornan wasn't able to make the preview, so I was lucky enough to catch up with him to speak to him about the show. So the man, Jamie Dornan, I mean, it's actually quite tricky to talk too much detail about it because we don't want to give away any spoilers to anyone.
Yeah, it's impossible almost to talk about it. But let's do our best.
Okay. Well, I guess let's go way back to, when Harry and Jack were talking about who they wanted for the man, it was always you, because this character required quite a kind of variety of things and characteristics. How was the project first kind of presented to you, and what was your reaction to? Did you read a script or yeah?
Yeah, it's nice to hear them say that, and they told me that, at some point, uh, but you never really truly believe that sort of stuff. You always the imposter syndrome is real, and you feel like if you've ended up there, you've ended up because a whole host of people have said they don't want to do it first. Um, but no, they were sort of adamant about that it was always me, which is great. So I guess when you know something like that, you really want to your enthusiasm for it wants to match what their thoughts are for it, of you being the right person for it. So, but it just was, these scripts. I think I was sent the first three. I think maybe two only. I think it was three. And two, after one, probably, I was like, yes, like this is just when you think you have a grasp of what's happening and what's going to happen next and why this person is where he is at this given point, that's just turned on its head. It is just you're pinballed around the place from beat one of the show until the end of 6 hours, and it's a really truly exciting and mad read, truly mad. Um, and I actually went into it. I didn't even know what happened in the end, and I'd already sort of committed. I sort of we'd had like
Love that.
conversations about it. Yeah, it is. It's cool, isn't it? Like, and I guess they weren't going to shaft me by the time, taking myself and my family out to Australia. It was going to be a good ending. I had an idea of what was going to happen, but I didn't fully know. So watching that sort of happen in real time was incredible too.
Is that a real kind of luxury, as an actor, of having a character that is kind of like thrown all over the place, and also when you film out of sync as well, in terms of getting to that place where you need to be for that specific point of the story?
So he loses his memory, has this accident, loses his memory. Um, so that getting to explore his own identity, um, as it's given to him,
Mm,
that's kind of rare and exciting, and it makes the process of taking on information, responding to it accordingly, really fresh, because you're trying to do it through someone who is discovering that for the first time. And
yeah.
it's not the first time people have lost it's not the first time I've played a character who's lost his memory, but for the BBC, in fact. But it happened more 1 or 2 seasons in, and the circumstances are very different, and there was a bit of a guess of like, is he lying or not, is he manipulating the
Yeah.
situation? But this just felt like I really felt like I was going on this journey with him from the beginning, and I was discovering it with him. And, Jack and Harry place him in so many different environments and so many different worlds. And there's so many unique and sometimes very sort of cartoon-like, almost like mad, otherworldly influences that come into his story that
Yeah.
just keep it interesting the whole time.
Well, that's it. The tone of the show is so brilliant. It's so fresh. It feels so different. You know, you've got that opening scene is just, you're kind of on the edge of your seat with the opening, and then, you know, cut to Danielle, and she's just amazing. You know, that character Helen, and the way she, even like when she comes to take the picture of you in the hospital bed, and it's the, you know, there's no dialogue really, it's the physicality of it as well. So the tone feels like it's so unique. Was that on the page, or was that kind of encouraged for you guys to find it as a cast, because it is almost a different tone between different characters?
Yeah, it was a bit of both, you know. Much of it was on the page, but then, you know, it's one thing to see it on a page, another thing to act that out or to elevate it beyond the page. You know, that comes down to hopefully the right cast that they've put together. And, you know, I think such a tricky thing when you're dealing with so many different tones. And I think people settle into the tone of it, two or three in particularly. I think at the beginning of it, it's a bit jarring because you're like, hold on, is this funny? Is this a comedy? You're not expecting it. And often the comedy comes at very dark moments in it. But I for one, think life is like that.
Oh,
I'm usually
totally.
humor in the darkest of moments, you know. And Jack and Harry certainly are. So it was definitely on the page and definitely a little bit down to what we were able to play with and bring to it. And also there's a bit of, you know, ad-libbing going on, a bit of improvisation. But so much of that, I think, it is like nothing else tonally, I think, out there in a good way. And I think it took someone like Chris Sweeney to handle that in a really delicate, smart way, so that it didn't feel like you're getting whacked over the head every time there was a joke. You know, that it all felt like sort of fluid, and you're sort of just going with the flow of this kind of obscure world that you haven't really spent time in television very often, maybe never. I just think it was so masterfully handled by Chris.
It's so refreshing. I found it really refreshing,
Yeah.
just in terms of, it did kind of feel like that, like you say, like it felt like life, where, you know, something, it can be tragic, but then someone comes in with an inappropriate joke at the point where, you know, it's so true to, yeah. And the landscape, I wanted to ask about shooting in Australia, because it's a real character in the story, even in that first episode, you know, and the
Yeah.
way that Chris has chosen to kind of shoot it. It's got, you know, Coen Brothers is in there. There's so much kind of sort of influence in there but it's still got its own identity. How much does that help? You're there, you're in the outback, you're like eating flies, you're keeping the dust off. I heard
Listen,
about the flies, by the way.
yeah, well, jeepers, I'm still digesting those guys. Um, it was like, it is a character within itself, you know. Like you make a choice to shoot somewhere like that because you want it to be a character, um, and it does a lot of that groundwork for you as an audience member. You instantly have an idea of the sort of thing that's going to happen. Fairly or unfairly, the outback of Australia has been used as a place where sinister stuff happens. I come from a place that has been used as a tool to show sinister things happening, so I know what that means, and I also forever going, oh, Belfast's actually a really nice place. It's similar to people in the outback going, it's not everyone's a serial killer out here. It's the same kind of thing, but it's just the epicness of the landscape, the openness of it, the remoteness of it. Some weird stuff does go down out there, you know, it does, like in any rural environment in any part of the world does, but Australia is so vast and the outback is so vast that you can probably get away with stuff a bit easier out there. But it just lends itself to this unbelievable backdrop for drama to happen, you know. And so much so that sometimes just set the camera up and literally just looking, you know, at a monitor as they were setting the camera up, and they hadn't even, like, you know, focused in on anything, and it just looked great. And I remember, like, a couple of times saying to, like, Shalom and Danielle and stuff, going like, Jesus, like, at least it'll look good. Like, we might be crap, but like it's gonna look really good. And you know, a lot of that, Ben Wheeler is our DP, who's an absolute genius and such a good lad. With such a brilliant crew on this, like the nicest bunch of people. And you know, they had a very strong visual plan for it. And I think, you mentioned Coen Brothers. I'm sure, the other night they weren't shying away from,
Yeah.
referencing those influences. They were, and McDonough, and there's some really strong influences there that I think really work, and hopefully people responded well to that.